Weight loss injections like Ozempic and Mounjaro are being called game changers for obesity, but are they truly the solution to the growing obesity crisis? Hello, I'm Luke, I'm a PhD student and a health economist at the University of Oxford with a keen interest in diabetes medicine and evidence-based decision making. In this video we're going to be looking at how these injections work, their benefits, their challenges, and whether or not they are truly a solution to the obesity crisis. GLP-1 or glucagon-like peptide 1 is a hormone that's naturally produced in the gut after eating. Its job is to tell your brain, hey, I'm full, stop eating. But here's the problem, our bodies only produce GLP-1s for a short time after we finish eating, which means hunger quickly returns. That's where medications like Ozempic and Mounjaro come in, because these are longer acting versions of this hormone that keep your fullness receptors active for longer. This means you naturally eat less, but you don't feel hungry. These drugs were originally developed for diabetes because they increase insulin levels and reduce glucose production, helping people with diabetes to control their blood sugar levels. But researchers began to notice something interesting, which was that patients taking GLP-1s lose quite a lot of weight, and the reason for this is the appetite suppression and a slowdown of digestion. We know that obesity is linked to serious increases in risk of long-term complications, so if you can reduce body weight, you can potentially reduce the risk of those complications, and that's quite nicely shown in this graph that I've adapted from a study. So you can see that losing weight dramatically reduces your risk of serious health complications. So this figure, this graph is showing a 13% reduction in weight loss in people with a BMI of 40, so people that would be morbidly obese. Before weight loss in red, the risk of the conditions like type 2 diabetes, sleep apnea, hypertension, etc. is significantly higher than compared to the reference group, which would be the line, which is BMI of 30. But after losing weight in blue, we can see that risk drops, especially for things like diabetes, sleep apnea, high blood pressure. That's why GLP-1 medicines are being called wonder drugs, because if you can reduce weight, you can cause these massive reductions in health risks. So how effective are these weight loss drugs? Well, semaglutide in the step 1 trial showed a reduction of around 15% in body weight, and then came tirzepatide, which is a dual agonist, and in the SURMOUNT-1 trial, patients on the higher dose lost a staggering 20 to 22% of body weight. The problem is, after people stop taking the GLP-1 receptor agonist, the weight quickly goes back on, as was found in the step 1 trial of semaglutide. So we can see here in figure A, the grey line represents the placebo arm, so people not taking the drug, and the blue line represents the semaglutide arm, or the treatment arm, people taking once weekly 2.4 milligrams semaglutide. And we can see that over the 68 week duration, participants taking semaglutide as expected lost body weight, lost around 16% of their body weight, but after they discontinued the drug, after they stopped taking the drug, that weight very quickly went back on, and you can see that after about a year after they've stopped taking the medication, over half of that weight has gone back on. So this brings into question, are these drugs just quick fixes, or are they actually long-term solutions to the obesity crisis? And the problem is, people do discontinue GLP-1s. So if we look at the step 1 trial, we can see that people taking semaglutide, around 7% of them stopped taking the drug, versus 3% in people taking a placebo, and the reason was mainly due to adverse events like gastrointestinal problems. The same is roughly true for the tirzepatide trial. If you take 15 milligrams of tirzepatide, around 6.2% of people taking the drug discontinued versus 2.6% in the placebo group. And what's particularly concerning is that when you look at trials over longer durations, like the SELECT trial, you see that the discontinuation due to adverse events is much higher. So, for example, 16.6% in the semaglutide group versus 8.2% in the placebo group. And when you look at discontinuation due to any cause, that number is again higher. In the semaglutide group, 26.7% of people discontinued the drug versus 23.6% in the placebo group. So if around roughly a quarter of people are discontinuing a GLP-1 drug within about 3 years, and by the way, real world discontinuation rates of these drugs look to be quite a bit higher than 25%. And we know that the weight regains after people discontinue the drug, then this raises the question, is this actually a sustainable solution for the obesity crisis? That's because the biggest driver of obesity isn't biology, it's actually the food environment. Cheap, ultra-processed, high-calorie meals with aggressive marketing make it really hard for people to maintain weight loss. So if GLP-1 receptor agonists are not addressing the root cause of the obesity crisis, and after people stop taking the drug, their weight quickly goes back on, then how can we address the obesity crisis at a societal level? Well, this graph shows the obesity rates in England from 1990 to 2020, alongside various government anti-obesity policies in the UK. And what's clear is that despite a dozen policies aimed at promoting healthier eating, exercising, public health initiatives, obesity rates have continued to rise, and worryingly, rise in children. So why these policies failed? Well, the food environment makes ultra-processed, high-calorie foods very cheap and accessible, whilst healthier options are usually more expensive and less convenient. So it's not a surprise that trying to tackle obesity through personal responsibility hasn't worked. And this is a really big problem. These drugs cost a lot of money. Rolling them out to millions of people is not cheap. And let's not forget, the food companies and the pharmaceutical companies are both very powerful lobbyists. Do either of them actually want to fix obesity when there's money to be made? So are weight loss injections the answer to the obesity crisis? They're definitely a huge breakthrough. But the problem is, unless you're going to deal with the structural problem of obesity, you won't fix the obesity crisis. Maybe the best approach is some kind of combination of these medications and serious policy changes. But that's obviously easier said than done when so many policy changes before have not worked. So what do you think? Do you think that these drugs are a quick fix, or do you think they're a long-term solution to the obesity crisis? Please let me know. Cheers.